All right, the long-awaited episode 2 of reading my favorite book. Fuck. All right, I got 2 things to say. Oh my God. There. Okay, I got 2 things to say. Number 1 is, I hate this, but Evan pointed this out. See this word? This is what I was looking at the other day. This is what I thought was touche. She cried. There's another one down there. Touche! She exclaimed. Evan Watts was like, no one exclaims a sneeze. That's definitely not a sneeze. And I was like, fuck, sounds like you're right. We looked it up and it's teacher in Pennsylvania Dutch. Boo! I hate when Evan Watts is right. All right, chapter 1.5. I'm at page 15. Buggy, Abigail's mother announced from the back door. Babby, buggy coming. Are you expecting someone? Abigail asked, walking away from the kitchen sink as she dried her hands on a towel, a red and white one with a rooster on it. It wasn't a plain towel. It wasn't the kind most Amish women had in their homes, but her mother had spotted it at Spence's Bazaar the previous week and had made such a fuss about wanting it that Abigail's father had bought it for her. It's not plain, Abigail had argued under her breath as they'd gotten in line to pay for it. We're new to Hickory Grove still. Dot. What will our bishop think? What will he think? He had asked as he peeled off dollar bills from a wad in his pocket he had kept together with a rubber band from a bunch of bananas. He'll think I'm a husband who indulges his wife once in a while. That's what he'll think. But it's red, Daddy, Abigail had murmured. That's why she likes it, he had whispered back with a smile. Oh, she's bad. She likes red? She. Abigail walked to the back door and peered out the window. There actually was a buggy approaching. It was not one of her mother's false alarms. Abigail didn't recognize the horse, though. It was a pretty light brown, almost caramel shade, not the color her horse had often saw pulling an Amish buggy. Cover your head, ma'am, she instructed absently, still watching out the window. June's hands flew to the tight bun of her thin hair that had grayed long ago. Where's my cap, Babby? Someone's taken my cap. No one's taken your cap. You've put it somewhere and I can't find it. It's been missing since morning. Abigail walked into the mudroom that was off the kitchen and grabbed a dark blue scarf from a rusty nail on the wall. Her father had finished a lot of work in the last 8 months since he and Abigail's mother had bought the property, but there was still a lot to be done. One item on Abigail's lengthy to-do list was to add pegs to the wall in the mudroom that also served as a laundry room. It just seemed uncivilized to her to be hanging coats and cloaks and hats on nails. I don't like that scarf, June fussed, trying to push her daughter's hands away as Abigail wrapped it neatly around her mother's head, covering her hair. For modesty's sake, no one but a woman's husband was supposed to see her bare head. I want the pink one, June fussed. We don't wear pink scarves, ma'am. Abigail deftly tied the scarf at the nape of her mother's neck. There you go. She smiled as she smoothed the fabric at her mother's forehead. All done. June King was a small woman, frail in appearance. But even though she was 70 years old, she was as strong as an ox, especially when she took a notion to put up a fight, which was happening with more frequency in Abigail's opinion. Her father, however, disagreed. He either downplayed his wife's inappropriate behavior and speech or denied it altogether. Abigail knew that deep in her father's heart, he must know his wife of 50 years was showing signs of dementia, but she suspected he wasn't yet ready for the truth. Who's here, Babby? June asked. This better not be another word that means something else. Who's there, Babby? June asked, as excited as a young girl going to her first singing. Do you think it's the bishop? I don't know who it is. Maybe a neighbor, Abigail responded. I think it's the bishop. Nay, I think not. Abigail walked across the kitchen to turn down the apple butter simmering on the stove. She'd found some apples no longer in their prime in the cellar and decided to do something with them before they spoiled. Bishop Simon's driving horse is black. Outside, Abigail's father's dog, Boots, began to bark. He was an old border collie, mostly deaf and suffering from arthritis, but he still managed to stand watch over the farm. When her parents had moved to Delaware the previous fall and taken the dog with them, Abigail's son had missed him dearly. When she and Jamie had arrived in Delaware, Jamie had been as excited to see the dog as his grandparents. "Oh my, it's that handsome schoolmaster," June declared, clapping her hands. She pushed the screen open and walked out onto the back porch, leaving the door wide open. "The schoolmaster?" Immediately concerned. Abigail dropped the wooden spoon she'd been using to stir the apple butter onto the counter. It fell so hard that it bounced. "What's he doing here?" She glanced at the round black and white battery-powered clock on the kitchen wall. It was only 2:45. School wasn't out for another 15 minutes. Abigail hustled to the open back door, her heart fluttering in her chest. It had to be Jamie. Was he ill? Had he been injured? She fought the panic rising in her chest as she went down the porch steps and into the driveway, walking past her mother. "School teacher," June greeted, waving eagerly. "So glad you could stop by. Come in for coffee and apple strudel. My daughter makes a fine streusel." Streusel. Oh, it's streusel, not strudel. "Ma'am, shush," Abigail murmured. "It's not proper calling out to a man like that." Now that the buggy was closer, Abigail could see that it was indeed the schoolmaster, and her Jamie. She could see her little boy through the buggy's windshield. He didn't look ill or injured, so why else would the teacher be bringing him home in a buggy, and early no less? Abigail hurried out to the middle of the driveway, catching the pretty mare's halter as the buggy rolled to a stop. Boots barked and ran in circles around the conveyance. Abigail went straight to the passenger side and slid open the door. "Jamie, are you all right?" she asked, trying as best as she could to hide her alarm. "What's wrong, son?" She reached out to him to take her in his arms in a hurry. He was really too big for her to carry anymore or even hold in his lap, and he didn't like it. But Jamie was her baby boy, her only child. A mother couldn't be criticized for caring about her child, could she? "I'm all right," Jamie said, pushing his mother away. "I'm fine. I can get down myself." Abigail clasped his cheeks in her hands. Looking into his brown eyes, he looked fine, not sick at all. "Not hurt?" she asked. "Not hurt or sick," the schoolmaster said dryly, pulling the brake on the buggy. His name was Ethan Miller. Abigail had met him several times. They were part of the same church district. The schoolmaster had also stopped by the house a couple of times as he walked home from school to complain about her son's behavior. She didn't care for Ethan Miller. He was grumpy and he expected too much of Jamie too soon. The poor boy had just moved across the country, halfway. His life had been turned upside down like an apple cart, leaving his friends in Wisconsin, living with his grandparents, joining a new community. Who could expect there would be such few bumps in the road? The schoolmaster got out of the buggy and walked around Abigail. He was a tall man, slender, with blonde hair, brown eyes, and a carefully trimmed beard. Some might have thought him handsome, and maybe in other circumstances, she might have too. The border collie sniffed at the schoolmaster's heels and then wandered away. "I brought Jamie home because he had a problem at school today," the schoolmaster said. "Again." Abigail looked down at her son, who was now standing beside her. "Go into the house with your gross mommy." Okay, it says gross mommy. I don't know if I can find that. Where's gross mommy? Yo, mom. Where's gross mommy? She. Go inside. Yeah, okay, look. Evan, don't call me out on this. Gross mommy. Go inside with your gross mommy. She told him, stroking his shoulder. "She'll find you a snack." Jamie smiled up at her. "Yeah, ma'am." "Yeah, mom." That's probably what it's like. "I'm not making him a snack, Babby," Mother put in. She was standing on the far side of the driveway, but she had heard every word. Abigail's father was losing his hearing, but her mother's was as good as her own, and it seemed as if she never missed a thing. "Jamie's been naughty. I don't make snacks for naughty boys." The schoolmaster glanced June's way and then returned his gaze to Abigail. "Actually, I'd like Jamie to stay here and tell you for himself what he did." Abigail looked at her son, then at the schoolmaster. "I don't understand." When the teacher didn't say anything, she turned her stare back to Jamie. "What did you do?" "I didn't mean to, Mom," Jamie said, pouting. "I'm very hungry. Could I have my snack?" "Tell her," the schoolmaster said, using a tone of voice that Abigail didn't much care for. Who did he think he was, speaking to a young boy so harshly? "Please, Mom," Jamie whined. "I'm so hungry," he touched his forehead. "I'm feeling dizzy." "Tell her," the schoolmaster repeated, lowering his voice until it was little more than a rumble. Oh yeah, so maybe it was more like, "Tell her." "Tell her, you naughty boy," June called from the other side of the driveway. Jamie's eyes filled with tears. I tried to tip over the girls' outhouse. I just wanted to see if I could do it. The words tumbled out of his mouth. I was trying to use a lever, like gross daddy taught me. I didn't even know Elsie was inside. I didn't want to hurt anyone. Abigail's eyes widened. You tried to tip over an outhouse with someone inside? He grabbed the hem of her apron. I didn't mean to, Mom. There, Abigail soothed, stroking his blonde curly hair. It's all right. It's not all right, the schoolmaster said. Now he was taking a tone with her. It was dangerous what he did. Then he lied to me, and when he finally did admit what he had done, he wasn't even apologetic. I am sorry, Mom, I am, the boy's son cried into her apron. He says he's sorry, Abigail returned stiffly, meeting the schoolmaster's gaze. He's not sorry he did it. He's sorry he got caught. The schoolmaster brought his hand to his neatly trimmed beard and stroked it. And that's not good enough, Abigail. Oh, it isn't enough, Ethan? For whom? She let go of Jamie to take a step closer to the schoolmaster. Her irritation was rising by the second. Her father had always said her quick temper was her worst trait, but sometimes she thought maybe it was her best. Life had been hard as a single woman since her husband's death, and it had been her experience that sometimes standing up to men got things done when nothing else would. That's bad, tipping over outhouses, June put in from the far side of the driveway. Ethan stood there in front of Abigail for a moment. He glanced away, then back at her. Maybe he had realized that she wasn't a weak-minded woman who would be pushed around by any man who wanted to give her advice on how to raise her son. This is the 4th time I've had to speak to you about Jamie's behavior at school, Ethan intoned. And I'm ready to just He took a breath and glanced at her son. Go with your grandmother, he said quietly. Jamie took off to the house, and Ethan met Abigail's gaze. For some reason, his tone made her angrier than it had just been raised. For some reason, his soft tone made her angrier than if he had just raised his voice to her. And who did he think he was about ordering her son around after school hours? You're ready to just what? She demanded. Expel him, he said flatly. Expel? Expel him? Abigail sputtered. Expel him? In my day, boys were paddled, June said. That's what my dad did when my brothers were bad. A good switching is what the boy needs, Babby. Abigail whipped around to her mother. Ma'am, please go see your grandson inside. She turned back to the schoolmaster. You've left me with little other choice. If Jamie's behavior doesn't improve, he's out, Ethan said. I've asked you repeatedly to rein your son in so far. I've seen no improvement. He doesn't turn in his schoolwork, or when he does, it's not complete. He doesn't listen, Ethan said, ticking off on his fingers. He's disruptive, disrespectful, and he's out of control. Out of control? He's 9 years old. Abigail pointed to the house in the direction Jamie had just gone. And what does that say for you, Ethan? She placed her hands on her hips. A teacher who can't control one mischievous boy? Mischievous? Ethan flared. Nay, his behavior is beyond mischievous. What about last week when he cut the strings off Martha's prayer cap with his scissors? What of the cow pie he put in Jamie Fisher's bologna sandwich? What about... She interrupts. You know what I have mine to do, Ethan Miller? Gritting her teeth. Ethan rested his hands on his hips. What? He demanded. I have a mind to go to the school board and have you dismissed. He laughed, which made her even angrier if that was possible. Dismissed under what grounds? Ethan scoffed. On your lack of control in the classroom, she said. She folded her arms over her chest. What kind of teacher are you that little boys get away with such things? It's clear to me you are unable to control your students and that you should be replaced immediately because you, she pointed at him, are obviously not doing your job. My job is not to teach your children how to behave. He pointed back at her. I'm like really into this. 14 minutes? That is your job. It's obvious the boy needs discipline at home. Abigail drew back, dropping her arms to her sides. Somewhere in the very back of her mind, she knew he had a point. But he had made her so angry that she couldn't think straight. Ethan walked away. Get your son under control or I'm expelling him, he warned. I certainly hope you don't speak to your wife with that tone, she flung back at him. Without another word, the schoolmaster got into his buggy, turned around in the driveway, and headed out the way he'd come. Abigail watched until he was halfway down the lane and then marched towards the house. Who did Ethan Miller think he was? How dare he threaten to expel her son? She passed her mother, who was still standing there beside the driveway. June watched her daughter walk by. What do you think of the school teacher, Babby? She asked brightly. Me? She broke into a broad smile, not giving Abigail a chance to respond. I like him. Chapter 1 complete. It's the best book in the world.